The holidays are almost here, and we are offering all Shifting Perceptions listeners an exclusive 15% off all posters and prints on jalders.com. Just use code SHIFT2018 at checkout. Hey, this is Jay.
And this is Chelsea.
Welcome to the Shifting Perceptions podcast.
We are bringing you inspiration to live a more creative lifestyle, because our favorite people are the ones that choose the path less traveled. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 12. This week we met with Rob Nagel. You may know his New Jersey and Florida brand and restaurant, Surf Taco. While we have known Rob for over 10 years, we had never heard his amazing story of his accidental entrepreneurship until today. Join us on this wild and relatable ride through Rob's story of 7 colleges, camping out in the Florida Keys to write screenplays, literally, moving to California to become the next Steven Spielberg, joining the AmeriCorps, and then creating a West Coast brand called Surf and Subs, which inevitably landed on the East Coast as Surf Taco. This episode is for every entrepreneur stuck on what's next for me and creative minds trying to find the business side of their brain. Rob's ability to visualize the future and paint a picture of a brand is creative and something to aspire towards. Let's jump in.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, Jay. Hey,
Hi,
Chelsea.
What's up, bro?
How are you?
We're doing good, man. We're stoked to have you here. So there's like so much freaking stuff to talk about that I've wanted to ask you for like a dozen or more years. So I think the best place is like figuring out how this Surf Taco thing happened, because as we are today, I think there's 13 locations. Yes?
13 in New Jersey and one in
so
Florida.
14.
14
You got to update your website then.
I know.
So we got 14 freaking locations of Surf Taco, which is like, it's an icon. It's like a culture. You've built like a tribe. I want to know how the fuck this all happened, basically. And can you give us like a rundown, like a launching off point where how this
So
started?
let's start with tacos, and then we'll rewind after that.
So, I mean, I think I have to start when I was out in California. My wife, my future wife, Melissa, and I were out in California, and I was I went back to school to Pepperdine, and I was taking an entrepreneur class.
And that's why you were in California for college, or?
I ended up going to California. We moved to California to do the domestic Peace Corps, which was
so that's actually
AmeriCorps.
the reason you moved out there.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were doing that for a little while?
We moved out there to move to California. So just in hindsight, I wanted to kind of go to California and get in the movie business.
Okay, really?
Whoa, wait a minute. You already blew me away. So wait a
way.
minute. So where do I start with this? So the Peace Corps or the movie business? Which of those came first?
It was just, growing up at the Jersey Shore, and, I was always wanted to be a creative guy, an artist, a musician, but I never really had that talent. So, but I would video and record everything in the 90s. So I have more documentation in the 90s than anybody at this point.
So a lot of like
secretly release those.
bribery material and
exactly.
like blackmail.
So I'm going to release them like short little clips as we go into the next decade.
Okay.
Cool.
And so I kind of wanted to just go to California. I didn't really have any knowledge, like when growing up in the 80s and 90s, like you found out about things through either word of mouth or TV, or you'd see it on you would hear it, so I had a friend that was out in California that was doing AmeriCorps Vista, and he was like, it's a great opportunity to get to California. You help people, you work at a nonprofit, and whether you're into the environment or kids or economic relief, or you want to kind of just go out to California or Alaska or Oregon, it was a great opportunity at the time. So Melissa and we decided to kind of move to California, and I thought, what an opportunity to kind of do something for the country and also give back to different underserved communities, and also get my foot in the door to be the next Steven Spielberg.
Awesome.
Whoa. So filmmaking was the thing you were going for.
So what was the big step out there? Like, did you end up taking anything towards being this producer or doing directing, or were there any classes?
Yeah, well, so it's a lot of just trying to get in and make the connections, and that was the hardest thing. So my thought process was I wasn't really getting in to anything that I really wanted to kind of pursue. So I thought, what if I went back to business school? And
what age is this, Rob?
This is like 26, 27.
Oh, okay.
So, my thought process was I went to about 7 different colleges.
No way.
Just to like test out their party.
Part of that.
Yeah. So starting in New Jersey, you were going to school, and then different colleges in California?
Yeah, I ended up going to Marist College my first year. I had a nun in high school that told me Marist College had a great communications program. So I ended up going to Poughkeepsie for a year.
Okay.
And, I always had trouble with the core classes.
Yeah.
Like I liked the art making and content and all that stuff. But like when they would make me take pre-calculus or chemistry or stuff, I just wouldn't make it.
Yeah.
I hear you.
I get that.
Yeah. So I dropped out of Marist and I transferred to the University of Delaware. And that was for the parties.
Yeah.
It was the top 10 party school
Yep.
at the time.
Thanks to
For
you.
like a decade straight. Yeah. Even when we went to college, it was that way.
So when I was there, I didn't really last long because once again, they had those core classes that always got in the way. So I went there for a year and then they didn't ask me to come back.
Is there a story behind that?
Many stories, but
Okay.
we'll save that for a different time.
Okay.
That'll be the bonus footage.
But I had thought, I didn't really want to tell my parents at the time that they weren't letting me back. So I thought I would just go back and take classes I wanted to take. And that's what I did.
Okay.
I went back and I just took philosophy and psychology classes, a film class, and I kind of just was like, well, I'm not here for the credits. I'm here for the knowledge.
That's actually the way we should go to college when you think about it.
In hindsight, it was a great journey because, it was at that time I saw a TV show called Key West.
Okay.
And it was with Fisher Stevens. And he was a journalist down in the Keys, and I saw palm trees and sunshine, and I was like, wow, that looks really cool. And I really didn't have any more reason to stick around in Delaware. So I packed up a tent and moved down to the Florida Keys for about 4 months.
Oh, my God.
And I was like, well, I'm going to be a screenwriter and kind of just figure it all out and kind of find myself. So
where did you live in the Keys? Like you found an apartment or what were you doing?
Big Pine Key, $5 a day. And it came with a shower and it was great.
You lived in your tent.
Lived in my tent.
Wow.
It was awesome. I mean, It was, just focus it. I called it RNU, Rob Nagel University. I was a student of one and I would read, I would write, I would just kind of absorb, live life, nature, the whole thing.
What was your family thinking at this point?
They were thinking, what are you doing? Where did you go? What are you doing?
Was this just like part of your personality? Like since you were a kid, like just going to go with the wind and
pretty much like if, I kind of always went off of intuition and sometimes you just need to check out and have the intent of why you want to do things. And this kind of led me down to the Florida Keys. And I didn't really have a direction at the time. I never thought about business. It was always about being a creative guy. And so I never even took a business class till I was 27.
So how old were you now living in the Keys?
I was 22.
Okay. And so what made you eventually decide I don't want to live in a tent anymore?
Jersey Shore summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was time to come back. It was, and growing up the Jersey Shore, I was a lifeguard for about 8 summers.
Which beach?
I started off at Ortley Beach and Island Beach and Normandy and kind of worked my way around the whole Jersey Shore. And, also bartended and waitered. And these 12 weeks is where you made your money. So when it was time to come back, I knew I had a job bartending and I could get a job lifeguarding. And I thought if I saved up enough money, I then can go to California and get into the movie business.
Okay. So you hadn't met Mel yet at this point.
I met her, and she didn't want anything to do with me at the time.
Because you were living in a tent.
I was living in a tent, finding
going
myself.
to Rob Nagel University.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, my resume wasn't that good.
It wasn't impressive yet. 7 colleges.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was that summer I came back. I met Melissa, and she had 2 more years of at Rutgers, and she wanted to go to California as well. So she was like, if you stick around here, we'll go together once I finish school.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, shit, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
So I just took classes.
Okay.
I took classes at Rutgers, and I took classes at NYU, and I took classes at Stockton and OCC. And
still creative classes, so you're still sort of working towards that development of the creative side.
All creative classes, and really no core classes.
All thinking about filmmaking still.
Not only filmmaking, but philosophies and psychology and humanities and English literature. Like I had interest in all those avenues, but a lot of filmmaking and screenwriting and all that stuff as well. So I kind of put together my own curriculum at that time.
And like, what kind of people were you looking up to at this point in your life? Like, who was like your icons that like were making these moves seem normal to you?
It was just a big screen, and I would just see the Steven Spielbergs out there and read their stories about how they kind of made it, and they would make their own movies. And I just thought that was what you did at the time. Those were the opportunities. So it all just seemed to make sense to go to California, and with the beaches and the culture and just growing up on the Jersey Shore. It was
a natural
Baywatch,
fit.
and you were like, that looks like fun.
Yeah.
So let's go to California. So
everyone runs in slow motion in red bathing suits there.
Yeah.
That's how it really is.
Yeah. Yes.
So then it was a matter of time of just when it came, and Melissa graduated. We packed up the car, and we had the plan to do AmeriCorps Vista. And we got a position at the 4-H after school program working with kids in South Central and East LA. And we would develop programs for them, find volunteers for them. And it was a 1-year commitment at the time. And we went out there and we did it. And we met so many great people from all over the country that were dedicating this year of their life to this program. And it was a really, really good time.
So with that side of you, this humanities side, I mean, I know, so your wife, Melissa, she's also has a social work side to her. Where does that come from in your roots? Because that's obviously going towards things like lifeguarding and then going towards a program of helping people, and that being the focus at that age in your life is not always the norm for people. So what is it about the way you grew up that was like, I want to help people. I want to help save the world. This is something I want to do.
Yeah, I think my mom, was a huge influence in my life. She really, she had me, and that was a big step because at the time, like, she probably could have done anything. She wanted to be a nun. So the fact that she had me is kind of
She wanted to be a nun? No way.
Really?
At one point in her life, she did.
Okay.
So, and then I came along, and I guess I changed paths for her. So I'm just grateful that, I was here and to kind of give back and to have that kind of human connection and kind of go that direction, I think made a lot of sense at the time.
Wow. So just very quickly on that, you were raised in a very religious household then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once, but once I said like, I wasn't going to be a priest, it really opened the doors to any possibilities. Right.
Yeah.
So once you disappoint your parents in the beginning, then it's a wide open world. Right. So that's what the benefit of all that is,
Right.
Yeah. Oh, wow. But you
Yeah.
still got to use that side of your like giving side to use that for good.
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
That's
And
pretty
going
cool.
out to California and having this and just seeing, underprivileged kids and just the world that they live in and just what they have and what they're working with was a real eye-opening experience coming from the Jersey Shore and being so privileged
Yeah.
to live here. So having that insight was an awesome experience. And then they asked me to be the Vista leader for the second year. So I stayed on board, and I was in charge of about 20 other Vistas that came from all over the country. And I oversaw that. And that was the first window into being a manager.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So
and you enjoyed that side of it.
I did because we were literally creating programs and opportunities and doing events and doing all this in a nonprofit environment. And that's where it really kind of clicked.
All these puzzle pieces are starting to come together.
Yeah,
I see it all happening.
One of your slogans for Surf Taco is like good vibes, good people. And like now it has like a completely new meaning, like hearing the story.
Yeah, it's really
behind
cool.
that.
Right.
It like obviously like being around you guys for this many years, you know, and you could see like, good vibes, but like hearing the roots of it like is so deep in like the philanthropy area. Like you were driven enough to do this. That's like really impressive and inspiring to hear that. What were some of like the lessons or like epiphanies or aha moments while you were there as a manager being involved with this? Was there a particular story or two that just made everything seem worth it?
Good question. I think it was just the people, you know, and it was really inspiring just to be by all these kind of people from all over the country that are giving their time, energy, and there for a reason to give back. And I think that was inspiring in itself. When we got together and we would just make it all work, and we were in this as a team and we weren't making any money, and it was just kind of such a good experience and very, very heartfelt. So I really felt that overall played a big role. So when I figured out that, you know, I could go back to school and go to business school and then combine what I've learned so far and then finally take a business class, it really connected the dots for me.
Yeah, I think that's like a big thing for people. They don't realize that most like entrepreneurs and business brained people are actually, I feel like the creative side of their brain is really the bigger side, and then they're just trying to figure out how to loop that together with other things. I love, because I think so many of the people we bring on this podcast have that moment, like the University of Delaware. It's like they're not inviting me back, but then you join something like this VistaCorps, and now they want you to manage the whole thing after a year. So it's seeing that something needed to click on that creative side for you to get things moving forward.
Yeah, and I think entrepreneurship is a combination of art and math, right? Like that's just where it kind of comes together. So entrepreneurship is the creation of an idea, and then you put the math behind it to make sure it works.
Wow. So at what point does the business thing click, and at what point does the business thing turn into like this idea of like, I want to create a taco joint or a taco? Was it always, I want to start a taco place, or was it like I want to create a brand? Like, where was the vision when you first started? Did you foresee where it could be, or you're just like, I just want to make a living and open a place?
So I'm in the last semester at Pepperdine, and I took an entrepreneurship class, and I didn't even know what that was, let alone try to spell it. Like it was just, and I remember sitting there and the professor was like, create something. I want you to do a business plan and create something that you feel is missing here in the area, and work backwards from that. And bring value to the customer and give that some thought. So being a Jersey Shore guy, I was like, well, what's missing out here? And I was like, I just remember growing up the Jersey Shore and the beach, and everybody would get subs.
Yeah.
It was kind of the
pizza
connection, or it could have been pizza, but I went with subs.
Yeah.
So I thought there was such a need out there when I was out there in the late 90s that there was no sub shops out there. So I was like, let me start there and work backwards and develop a business plan. And she really gave us the tools to go into making a business plan. She's like, don't just create a business plan, create a vision for your life. And that was really kind of a big moment, because then you're talking about, where do I want to live? What does my future look like? Where do I want to go? And then how to go about going that direction. So that was a really kind of aha moment for me, because then I knew I was on to something, and I really felt the momentum. And then I loved the culture of it. of growing up at the Jersey Shore and surfing and the beach and the ocean and volleyball and all that. So I thought about a name and I was like, Surf and Subs, Surf and Subs, Surf and Subs. And I would open up from San Diego to San Francisco next to every surf shop that's out there. And I can combo that with the lifestyle and volleyball tournaments and beach cleanups and nonprofit things going on out there. So I had this idea that this was the way to go. And I created a business plan and I was ingrained in it. And I was known as a sub guy at Pepperdine in the late 90s. Like that was kind of my thing, but life happens, right? And then Melissa's dad got sick and family's back here and she wants to move home.
So did you actually take steps towards opening this business out there, or you just had this business plan?
I was looking at locations and I was looking at equipment, and we were pretty close to kind of moving in that direction. I had a little spot in Hermosa Beach that I thought would have been epic.
So I don't understand how you went from like a class assignment to then taking action on it. Can you tell me how that happened? Because most class assignments, people blow off or they do it and they get excited and then the next semester happens. How did it just
I actually have like I did communications and business, and I have like 2 or 3 businesses I started in college, but I handed them in and I never thought about them again.
Like what I want to understand, especially for people listening that have an idea, everyone has ideas, but there's a mindset in your brain that allowed you to think that taking action made sense and could work. How?
Well, I had nothing else going on.
Okay.
Right? Like, so.
Did you have money saved up? Like, that's a big obstacle for most people.
Absolutely no.
Okay.
I had a couch and like a 1982 Acura, I think it was. So it was just a matter of will. Like, I felt that this really clicked, this idea of entrepreneurship, and I just felt I was, and I felt I had the skills that I could be creative and bring the business side of it together to make something successful. So, and then I wasn't getting any offers in the film business. I want to be a producer. Yeah. Well, so does everybody else.
Right.
Like, so I kind of had some doors shut there that I realized if I'm going to kind of make anything out of myself, you got to do it yourself. And I really had this planned out, and in my head, the vision was there. So when it was time to come back to New Jersey, it was like, well, what am I going to do?
Right.
And we took a flight back, and this is in August of 2000. And I literally drove by, Brave New World, and there was this old abandoned health food store right next to it. And I said, oh, wow, that would have been a great place if I was to do my sub.
Right, because you have those goggles on now of like spotting these like epic spots for this.
I still don't understand how it happened. Like I'm so fascinated because like everyone has an idea, but like somehow you're in this class and you're doing the assignment, and in your head something happened. Like this actually could be happening. This actually is real. Like I want to understand that. Like give me some juicy information that someone's going to listen to and be like, that's what's stopping me. Like what is stopping most people that didn't stop you? Like, why did this seem like, I
think fear,
okay.
I think, just realizing that, and the grind and the effort that it's going to take and the hard work that you have to put into it.
Yeah.
Like I was ready, I was 29 at the time. So I gave myself my 20s to figure out what I wanted to do. And I was ready to go all in. And if I failed, I failed. But I'm going to make this happen. I'm ready. I have no other options. The only thing they can take from me is my couch. And if that happens, then so be it. Like, I'm ready to work and make this work no matter what. So when this opportunity, and I saw this space next to Brave New World, and I knew I couldn't do subs there, I thought, well, I fell in love with the California cuisine and the coastal cuisine and the tacos and the burritos and wraps and the smoothies and the California lifestyle. And I thought, this could be a good match for us. And if we could kind of bring this together and marry it with the surf culture, I think we could be onto something. And then instead of surfing subs, we surfing tacos, and surf taco kind of came to life. And at the time, my buddy Ed, he was a Northeast Rip Curl rep, and he was so tied into the surf culture that we partnered up, and then we kind of went for it and opened the first surf taco in Point Pleasant Beach.
So what I'm hearing with the fear thing is like, for most people, I think they let fear stop them from taking action. But in your case, and I kind of relate it to my own story, like for me, being an artist is like a scary pursuit for most people because it's hard as fuck, right? Let's face it. But like for me, it was scarier to not know what could be. And it sounds like that was maybe similar for you. Like you were scared of like, what if I don't try it? As opposed to like, what if I fail? That wasn't your block. Fear was actually a pushing force for you. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. Like using that fear and turning it into a desire and a hunger and a belief. Like right. You really got to get in your head and just really map it out and understand your skills and what you need. And then just being willing to grind and hustle and get it done and do whatever it takes. And, building out that store, I was a GC and I have no skills whatsoever, but it was just about bringing family and friends together and people that could help us build the first store and do whatever it takes. And if it's trying to change a toilet, and then you do it, and then you trying to spackle or paint and do all that stuff, you do it. And that's what kind of the mentality you need, and be willing to go that way, and just also put out other people's perceptions on you. Like, this is who I am and this is what we're going to do, and we're going to make it work. And you know what? If it doesn't work, then I'll figure something else out.
Well, with that first year, so I love this history because I think it was another like 3-4 years before I moved to the area. So then there was a few more stores open. But when you're first opening that first store, did you have that same plan in your head of the sub shop where you're like, we're going to go into every beach town around here? Or were you like, let's get through this first store, sort it all out, and go from there?
Yeah, I literally took white out to my business plan, and wherever it said subs, I wrote in tacos.
Awesome.
And then I took the map that had me going from San Diego to San Francisco. I looked at New Jersey and then just circled places where I felt these stores could work. So the vision was already there, and we were already on our way, and it was just a matter of changing subs to tacos, so the vision was always the same.
So with that first store at Point, I know I've heard you guys talk, all of you with Ed and everyone, like we were slinging tacos and we didn't know what we were doing at first and all of that. What were your biggest failures in that first store? Like what were your first like, shit, we might not make it past this?
I just getting to the opening day, it was shit. I don't know if we're going to make it. I mean, we did it on such a shoestring budget and we just literally slapped things together. And we were so fortunate to open Memorial Day weekend 2001, and hiring people and figuring out the menu and then just getting the customers in the door, so it was a matter of every day was, oh shit, like what do we do and how do we do it? And then just and the whole thing is just being customer focused and just listening to the customer and talking to them and getting them on board and have them cheer for you was a key component too, because we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, with that first menu, do you feel like it's changed completely? Like, are you a totally different business now? Or are there like the core things that kind of carried you through?
There's the core things, but we're always listening to the customer and changing to new trends and new ways about what they're looking for. So I think being in touch with that and being in touch with the customer and adding value to the customer and giving them what they want is always a key component versus exactly, and consistency. I mean, that's always a big component right now, is making sure you get the same product from one store to the other.
What I'm seeing is like how the big picture of how like you wanting to be a filmmaker, a storyteller, an artist, I'm seeing how that played out in this, because like to be an entrepreneur and see that vision, it's almost like as you're telling the story, I'm picturing you like drawing a storyboard of a movie. Like, here's the beginning of the movie, and then it transitions to here, and here's the hard part and the struggle, and then this happens, and it's like it's almost like watching a movie happen. I'm wondering, has that been an obvious thing for you to notice how like the filmmaking part of you has like manifested into this other medium?
Absolutely. That's the exciting part, because we try to create an experience when you come into a shop. So it's not just the food, it's the art, it's the surf videos, it's the music, it's the friendliness of the person at the counter, it's the salsas, it's all of this that makes this an experience and an escape, right? Like, you got 15 minutes, you're having a hard day, you can kind of zone out on one of your paintings or a surf video, or just kind of feel the music. So I'm always about just trying to create that experience and making that a positive experience that really kind of brings you back.
Well, and you've done like a phenomenal job. Obviously, that's what brought all of us together, was the art in the space. So since we've had Alex Lanau on this show already, talk about how you collided with him, because it's such a natural fit now that we hear the story of California and all of it. But we never got to ask Alex how he met you guys and how that all happened. Was that from the start, or you added in later?
So we were doing Belmar. We were just opening up Belmar, and we were delayed for so long, and there was a festival going on in Belmar, so we thought we would do it for 2 days, and we set up shop there. And I had my skateboard, and I was skateboarding around the grounds, and some dude comes up, and he's like, "Yo, nice skateboard, man." And I'm like, "Yeah, thanks, dude." He's like, "I painted that." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
Oh man!
And so I brought him over to the stand, and we had another buddy of ours that was working at one of our shops who lived in Costa Rica for 10 years, and they connected. And he's like, "I'm living here for this summer in Wall. I'm looking. I'm like, well, we got plenty of walls to paint. You ready to go?" And that's how it kind of connected.
No
so
way.
It's like that serendipity moment of me
Wow.
just skating around the grounds, and him seeing his artwork, and then us connecting. And that's been, at least 12, 13 years ago.
Wow. Well, that's like something I've always loved about your vision of these stores. And I think that sets you apart from maybe some of the other taco places, is that there's consistency that's inconsistent. Like, it's different paintings, it's different style. Like, each store has its own vibe. Like, Point always has to feel like the grimy surf shack. Like, it just has to. That's like the way that it is, with this
Right.
beautiful, amazing surf art on the walls. But what was from the beginning was like the art shows, the live music, was that always like, it has to have this? That's like important to us.
Yeah, did that just
Absolutely.
like accidentally happen? Like, did that just was
Like
that
that
part
the
of your
art became
plan?
such a
Because-
big part. Yeah.
No, I think it is part of the plan. I mean, your art draws people in. I see it. I wake up to it every morning, and it's kind of this dreamy reality escapism that I love. Like, I love being in that zone. And that's what I wanted customers and people coming in to experience, So when you're eating the burrito, you can pretend that you're somewhere else, and it kind of draws you in, and it gives you that escapism that I think is an essential part of what we do. Anybody can serve a taco, but when we can kind of give you a better experience, and you're able to check out, and you feel good, and you can chill, and you can hang, you can connect. Those are all the ingredients that kind of give you the success, and you're able to kind of take people, not only get a piece of their, you're feeding their stomach, but you're also feeding their mind and giving them this other experience.
Yeah, which I love. We actually I have seen a couple comments, which I so appreciate that you've kept Jay's art up at Red Bank, because we've seen like a few comments of like, do I need my kid to be sitting under this big naked butt? And it's
Right.
like, it's
we should
just wearing a
specify
bathing
for
suit.
like, people that are not from the area. We should
Yeah.
like specify that like Rob, like, very thankfully has been like really supportive of my art. Like, we met in 2006,
Something like
6
that.
or
Ish.
7.
Right.
Yeah.
and you were like super supportive from the very beginning, and I'm so grateful to have my art in like a majority of the shops And
one of the original, you're like one of his first actual collectors of original pieces too. So you have replicas in the stores, but then also have
you're
originals
one of my first
at home.
like collectors.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful for that. So thank you. I've told you thank you so many times, but on the air, thank you.
Well, thank you. I mean, I appreciate your artwork and I love waking up to it every day. So, I mean, really kind of it takes me out of that dreamy state, and then I realize that reality is coming. So it's a nice kind of moment for me.
It's cool because now that I hear these other parts of your story, I realize like the filmmaker part of Rob, like you've been like casting us all along. Like Alex and I have been casted in the role of the artists in the movie, right?
Right.
And it's like, for me, like my art is like my escape. So like when I was living in Belmar, that was my dream of like, I'm actually painting this alternate version of myself surfing these tropical waves. And it's like, for you, you're creating an environment in these stores that's also doing that. And they kind of like mesh together, like, and knowing the staff and the managers like we do as friends, it's cool thinking of us how we were all casted in the different roles. Like, what part of the Surf Taco movie would you say we're at now?
I wish it was that planned out. Like that would have been
imagine.
Nice. Yeah, there's still a lot of sequels to go. We'll say that. I mean, I think we're just getting started.
Okay.
And I think there's a lot more to go. And I'm really excited because it really is about people. And when you have the right connection and you've got the right energy, and you're able to bring that vibe that we try to do, I think that's it. That's the magic.
Yeah, it really is telling a story. Well, so that vision on the map of like the West Coast, what are your like top 5, like we're going to be here someday on the East Coast right now? Like where else
or
are you
anywhere
looking?
for that
yeah,
matter,
or
right?
anywhere.
Like, sure. I mean, I think, we kind of, what we did this year by pushing the envelope and going 1,500 miles down to Florida, I think we put a stake in the ground down there.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of room from there back to Jersey. So, up and down the coast, there's plenty of opportunities. There's plenty of spots that we can kind of go and connect the dots coming backwards. And then there's also other places that we can expand from there. But I think we got a good direction and it's a great journey. And I love where we're going.
So I know we've talked about this before, but you guys do not franchise. You guys do them all yourselves, right? That's the business plan?
We have one franchise, my cousin
right.
Jimmy in Seaside Park.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at some alternative ways for growth right now. And I think we got a really good idea about how to kind of bring the brand to the next level.
Any plans for Shark Tank?
No plans for Shark Tank.
I want to get back to the good vibes for a second. Because I see like your party days, I see like you wanting to bring love and goodness to California with the like Peace Corps thing you did, and I remember a time when like we were doing the gallery, we had a brick and mortar briefly, and I remember on the phone with you talking about how stressed I was, and it was such an anxiety-driven experience on some levels, and you were like, "Dude, that's just part of it." So I know from like past conversations about that or about other things in life, like there are bad vibes that happen, or that there are other things in our lives that are not necessarily all like tropical waves and red bathing suit wearing Pamela Anderson's running slowly. There are things that are like not so good. How do you cope with that? How do you manage that in a way where like this doesn't just crush you with the pressure that it must have at times?
Putting it into perspective first off, and understanding that shit happens every single day and just dealing with that. I also like meditation. I think doing that twice a day or at least for 20 minutes at night really kind of calms my mind, and you can kind of settle the monkey mind that's going on, and you're just able to kind of chill out and let that all go. So I think that's a good tool for anybody out there that feels that. But it's ultimately about putting things into perspective. And like, I am just so grateful to be on this journey. And I know there's always going to be somebody that doesn't show up, or you got a bad review, or you forgot the beans in somebody's burrito. That shit happens. So I think that's just a part of it, and taking that not personally, but also just understanding we got to do a better job, and there's just better ways to go about it, and where did we go wrong. And ultimately, just also making that connection with the customer. Like, we're going to mess up. We're not perfect, but we appreciate your support, and we hope you come back, and we're going to do our best to make sure your next experiences are even better.
That's awesome. Well, so we talk a lot about just between Jay and I, like the things that we dream of delegating. I think like delegation would be like our dream come true someday.
Big wet dream.
Yes. So I know you have this like phenomenal team in place, but what are the things you'll never let go of? Like, you're just like, this is the stuff I do and no one can take it.
I'm having trouble with the marketing side because I really feel I'm a marketer that sells tacos, and I feel because it's just so passionate about it. And it also goes to the designs of the store and making sure like the TV's in the right spot and the picture's in the right spot, or Alex paints one more dot over there, puts a bird somewhere. I'm always asking him for a bird.
Put a bird on it.
Put a bird on it. Yeah.
So I think the detailed stuff, even more so, I think is crucial because that all stuff matters to me. And like the music and making sure we have the right playlist and making sure, people remember limes with certain burritos and like all those details really matter. So I think that's a key component.
So what I love about this conversation with you is that I think a lot of people who meet you don't realize, because you're quiet, so you're tricky. Stealth. So like they don't realize that your brain is like, okay, when this place is empty, I'm going to have to move that painting over there. Or at the end of the day, we're going to have a conversation because I definitely saw that burrito go out without a lime. Like, all that's happening for you, and none of us have any idea it's going on.
Yeah, like you kind of have this like persona, which I'm sure is by design, where it's like, you're like, yeah, dude, epic. I'm always Mr. Laidback Rob. But like,
just going to let them take care of
there's another side of you, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, my mind's always working. And I see people that somebody's looking for a fork, and I know they need a fork, and somebody get them a fork.
Yeah.
You know, like,
give that guy a fork.
Please, for the love of God. No.
You savages.
So it is that, and it's just always comes back to making sure we're giving it the good experience, and all that matters to me. And I can see it maybe a little bit differently than a lot of people. It doesn't bother them, but like subconsciously, I think it does. So I want to make sure, that TV's lowered 2 inches.
Yeah. No, it does make a difference, and you can feel it in the stores. It's funny because I think things that a lot of people won't notice, we tend to notice just because Jay's art's involved. So like we'll go to a store and we're like,
I'll adjust the painting.
Yeah, we're like, what happened? Or the painting was moved, and we're just like, oh, look at that.
Right. Yeah, that stuff drives me crazy.
Yeah.
That's Jay's Tiffany, our sister-in-law. Jay will go through the painting and the house and like slightly adjust paintings just to mess with her.
So Rob, do you have like suggestions for fellow entrepreneurs? Because I think I speak for more than just myself when I say when you're an entrepreneur, it's like that expression goes, you work like 80 hours a week to not have to work 40 hours a week for someone else, right? Like, how do you like turn off? Because you have sons, you have a wife, you have like friends and family that you're like always the guy that's like very attentive to like everyone else. Like you're like a people pleaser, but not in a fake way. Like you genuinely are there for everyone. And like, how do you manage to like turn off all the stresses times 14 locations and all the background stuff that people don't even see or notice? How do you manage, like, when you walk in the door to your house to be like, that's gone? Do you have suggestions how to do that? Because I struggle with that sometimes, and I work from my house. So it's like I'm always half in work mode and half in family mode, and sometimes juggling it is difficult.
Yeah, well, first off, being an entrepreneur, you're signing up for this, right? Like, hopefully it's something you're passionate about and you want to do and create and be a part of it every single day, because it doesn't turn off. It's always there. There's always something else you can be doing, you should be doing, you want to be doing. I think just trying to be present when you are there is a key component, and like just trying to turn off the brain on the business side and say, I'm going to focus on this for the next hour, I think is the way to do it. and then I'm going to have to go back to X, Y, and Z, and that's important. So just the ability to kind of turn on and turn off, and also find the escapes that work for you, and how are you able to relax? I think self-awareness is key. Being nurturing yourself and finding ways that you can kind of turn off the brain, whether it's a good hike somewhere, or you go to the ocean, or you surf, or you snowboard, whatever you want to do that kind of takes you out of your element and gives you that different perspective, and you're able to kind of reboot, per se, I think is crucial in this environment. I think if you push yourself too hard, you're going to burn out, and you're not going to make the right decisions, and you're in trouble. So I think it's a balance, and I think it's hard, but I think it's also necessary.
So with talking about that and your release and all of that, where is the balance of that creative side coming in the most right now? I know you said marketing. Are you doing anything else that's like, or are you feeling like you need more of that? Where are you with the creative side of your mind?
We just did Jupiter, and I just loved how that turned out, and kind of really getting involved in that layout and just how that kind of came together. So now I'm just kind of figuring out, what the next step for us, and how we can give more value to our customer, and not necessarily just through tacos. Like, I think in today's day and age, and being a brand, it's so important to just give them more value. And to that fact of what you're doing right here, right? Like, you're more than an artist. Now you've got this whole other platform that you're able to kind of give value to your customers. And I think that's invaluable. And I think that's just a direction as an entrepreneur or as a business owner that you really got to go. I mean, there's so many different platforms out there right now that we can really humanize a brand and really connect to the customer. So I'm really excited about that, because I think there's so many more ways that we can connect and talk to people and just have these conversations from different platforms.
So we'll let Steven Spielberg know you're still coming for him.
I think those days have passed.
Is that not like a background dream for you? Like, someday when XYZ happens, you'll maybe produce a film, or like you'll write something? Like, is that?
I think that, just the medium's changed. You don't have to go to California anymore.
Yeah.
All these platforms that are out there, and you could tell a story and get it out to people for very cheap. And I just think more and more people are going to do that. And I think there's going to be more avenues for that. And I think that's where we're at right now, And so I don't think you need to go to Hollywood and do a big movie anymore, right? You want to connect with the right people and get that information, or that TV show or documentary, to the people that matter and that connect with you. So I think that it's an unbelievable time right now. I mean, it's a wide open world. I mean, if this was the 90s right now, I would be in a whole different path, Like, I think it's just wide open. We're just starting. And I love just being a part of it right now.
Do you feel like safer being in like the service, like restaurant industry, with all the stuff happening with like brick and mortars closing? Like, do you feel like, good, I landed in something that people always are going to need to eat?
I do, but I do feel like that medium's changing too. Like,
Yeah.
I think like what we're seeing with delivery and the direction that's going to go, and we're just going to hit a button and it's going to show up at your door in an hour, where location might not be as valuable as it once was. And I think with the brick and mortars, you just got to be careful of what you're doing. And on top of that, it goes back to just creating that experience. So now your competition is anybody that can kind of go in and do it. But now you've got to make sure people are going to show up, because convenience is really taking over, and time, and what that's going to save me if I can just hit a button and my taco salad shows up, and like, life's good, like, so you really got to be more creative going into the restaurant business. Yeah, people eat, still eat, but there's so many other options as well. So you really got to kind of stay ahead of the curve and give more value.
Yeah, you really need that full experience now. It can't just be like when, even just us, like, you don't go out that much. So if we're like choosing a place, you want it to be, because the kids will love it and it will be an experience, and like, it has to be the right fit for people.
Absolutely.
What do you feel like you or the brand, most people just don't get or misunderstand that maybe you are trying to focus on improving that narrative or clarifying your vision? Is there any confusion or any clarity that needs to happen still?
I mean, I think the brand speaks for itself, and I've always let the brand speak for itself. I think, the misconception and being a chain, quote unquote, is kind of, people will say, oh, that's a chain, I don't go to it, and versus a mom and pop, I'd rather support. So, we are just local guys and girls and just trying to, make it work. And the fact that we were able to expand and grow, it shouldn't be a negative, and I feel like that sometimes comes up in conversations, and it doesn't bother me, but it might be a reason why some people don't.
What does bother you? Anything?
What does bother me?
Yeah.
There's a number of things that bother me, but that's a whole separate podcast.
Can you give us like one or two? What's Rob Nagel's like one or two hot spots or pet peeves, like stuff that doesn't make you feel
other than
epic?
People not getting forks outside.
Well, that I mean, and clearing dishes on tables is a huge problem for me. Like that connection with the customer really, if you ask my employees, that'll be what they would say.
Something outside of this, is there anything like
that bothers me now?
Yeah, what makes you scared? What makes you peeved? Because like a lot of things that most people hear you doing seem terrifying, like opening another business, putting more on the line, like doubling down again, like taking these big risks. These are things most people would be scared of, and there's a lot of things that like people get they get peeved of stress. They don't like more responsibility. What kinds of things that are things that you're just like, I just don't handle that well?
I think, I think bad experiences from customers, I think that's when we don't execute, enough and give that experience that I'm kind of preaching about right here is kind of a key. And when you don't execute, and then whether it's the food, the people, the vibe, that's really disappointing to me, because then I'm like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
So coming back to that charitable side of like being involved in all these amazing things in the West Coast, what are you finding the most fulfillment in over here now on that side of your business? Like, I know you do the Big Brother, Big Sister thing. I know you're involved in a lot of different things. Are there any that you're like, this one is filling me up?
I think there's a long way we can go on that side. We have a foundation, ST Cares, that we're a part of, and we do a number of different things throughout the year. We've got some big plans for 2019 that we're going to tie into different events that I'm really excited about. We're not quite there figuring out the details, but I'm pretty excited about that avenue, because that's such a big part of who we are. And I think we just got to kind of solidify some things right now, so that we got some things in motion that I'm pretty excited about.
So up and coming 2019. Got it.
So what's next? What does the future hold for you personally and Surf Taco?
We're going to keep rolling. Like, we're growing in Florida. We got some opportunities here in New Jersey we're looking at. And, we're pretty excited about just putting people in the right places and creating the vibe and the atmosphere, and kind of continue to do what we do. Like, I think I mentioned that it's a wide open kind of blue ocean out there, and we just got to find what location works for us, what people are the right people in place, and how to execute the best quality food that we can, and kind of keep up with that, and just overall give that experience, and just grow and be as good as your taco, one taco at a time, and that's at the end of the day, that's all we try to do.
One taco at a time. I love this. We have one dot at a time from Alex, so one taco at a time. Surf Taco. Well, so we love giving people advice on this podcast, just as far as entrepreneurship. So you were on a journey that so many creative people go on, where it's like they're just misdirected through the normal system. Like, college is not a good fit, or the right college hasn't found them yet. What are the tips and advice you give to people when they're like, I see this vision? Like, I feel like now it's so doable with food trucks and all this stuff. So what are the first steps? Like, you had that special skill of being able to sort of visualize it, which maybe you don't realize that was your skill at the time, but being in movie production and all of that, you actually had this ability to see it all play out in front of you. What are those very first steps for people? Like, what's the advice you can give?
Take a deep breath.
Yeah.
And like really kind of give yourself the patience and understand, especially if you're young, like everybody's just wants to figure it all out, right? Like,
like instantly.
It took me a decade to figure out what I wanted to do. And like, you don't need to know what you want to do or should do when you're 22 years old. And I think that's a problem right now because we're kind of zoned into just being something that you may or may not want to be.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you're just able to take a deep breath and try whatever, go to California, travel, take a job that interests you, find what your passion is, so to speak, and pursue that, because that's where the nugget of inspiration is going to come from. And then when you have that nugget of inspiration, be ready to go all in.
Yeah.
You know, like build yourself up and have that self-confidence and self-awareness that when that opportunity does present itself and it's really connected to your passion, be ready to work, hustle, grind, get it all done. And that'll just lead to more opportunities and more experiences. And if you're dedicated to that, you know, the first road might not work out and your first vision might not happen. But if you're willing to put in the work and do the exercise, then, you know, the path might be windy, but you'll get to where you want to go.
Yeah, so, subs will lead you to tacos and onward and upward.
There you go.
It's awesome. I think that is an interesting thing that, I don't know, the 30s seem to be when people sort it out. Like, I just feel like, I mean, for me, I had a whole different career before I suddenly decided to be a doula and realized that's what I was always supposed to be doing. And Jade didn't take the jump for art until you were 35.
Like a serious way until 30-ish.
Yeah. And it's like we have in our heads that we've got it all sorted out at like 23, 24. Like, oh no, this is just what I'm going to do. And this is my life. And then suddenly you realize 10 years later that you're wiser, stronger. You know what you want. You're willing to take these like calculated risks now.
There's also so much pressure because it's like when you're at that late 20s age, some of your friends are like buying nice cars by that point.
Right.
Some of them are getting married, having kids, and like getting, you know, business cards with these super fancy titles. And like, I remember I didn't have my shit even close to where I wanted it at that age. And like, so you kind of did your stuff a little late also. There was no pressure for you at that point. Like, you must have had friends that were like doing quote unquote big things. Was there a part of you that compared or got down on yourself during that age?
It was the opposite. Like, I saw my friends going up the corporate ladder and I was scared for them because I saw they couldn't get out. They had the car payment.
Totally.
They were looking to buy a house and they weren't happy.
Yeah.
And they had to wear a tie.
Yeah.
I'm the same way.
That's the biggest one. Yeah. Mine was like those pencil skirts. I was like, hell no, I'm not doing it.
I had the same thing happen to me. I was living in Hoboken at one point. I was like 24 maybe. And I like was desperate to get some kind of a real job because I thought you were supposed to. I was freelancing, so I was making pretty good money. And I went up taking a job on a Friday in Manhattan. And then on the commute home, I looked across from me and everyone looked like fucking zombies wearing ties. They had no life in their eyes. They had headphones on. And I was like seeing like the Christmas Future, you know, like that movie.
Right.
What movie is that?
The past the Muppets,
the Bah Humbug
Muppets?
guy.
Yeah,
I was like seeing my future in
Scrooge.
front of me, and that terrified me. So that was on a Friday. I took the job. Then on a Saturday morning, I called and left a message saying like, "Sorry, I can't take that job." And then by Monday, I was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna full-time freelance or work for myself forever." Because I think for people like us or entrepreneurs in general, the idea of like working for someone else is way scarier than working for yourself. But people on the opposite end, people that are used to working 9-to-5 jobs, they say, well, I always would love to work for myself, but that's scary. And I'm like, that's so the opposite for me.
Right.
It terrifies me.
Right. Well, I think you got to take inventory of who you are, right?
Yeah.
Like, and some people want the security. Some people like the 9-to-5. And that's great.
Yeah, you need that in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was raised by a father that was like, I mean, he was incredibly successful functioning that way. And like, that was he was meant to do that. He likes the structure. Like, it made sense for him.
Yeah.
But then for me, that would have made me feel like I was drowning in a fish tank. So
yeah, I think it's a balance of that. You know, with being an entrepreneur, like, you need also those people to give you that structure and make things happen. Or too many times we're so out in the clouds almost, and we need a little taste of reality. So it's a balance that we try to make work.
Yeah.
I guess that comes down to like who you cast in the different roles. Like, you're like, I need a guy or a girl that's in a suit that does this for me now. So I'll find one.
I wish it was more thought out like that. I got to give that some more thought. I think it happens actually more organically. Like, it's more about the serendipity of things and just saying like, oh, this guy's got a good vibe. Let's let him paint, you know?
I love that side of you, Rob. Like, I've seen you in action in that sense where you're just like, even just in picking out Jay's art that'll fit in the stories. Like, I've seen you just be like, well, I'll have one of those that I can see would look good. And like, it's kind of funny because when I watch you, I feel like you're just like shooting at nothing. Like, okay, we're just going to do this.
Yeah, but then you take like 4 days to figure it out.
Yeah, but he actually is like, your brain is actually putting together a story.
I love that aspect. I mean, that's kind of the art.
Like curating your scene.
Yeah. Right.
That's awesome.
Should we
so I have one last question. So we ask everyone, and I am very interested to hear what a nun's kitchen looks like.
Yes.
But can you tell me what you first think of when we tell you you're in your childhood kitchen?
I am late for school.
Okay.
Oh God, that's going to be our kids' memory. Us yelling at them late for school.
Yeah, my mom made maybe some Maxwell coffee. Yeah, probably, and an English muffin. And I lived about 4 minutes and 20 seconds from school.
4:20.
4:20.
And every morning at 8:11, I would have a sip of coffee, a bite of an English muffin, and I had my tie and my socks in hand, and I would run to school every morning.
Oh my gosh, you went to private school. What school did you go to?
It was called Monsignor Donovan at the
time.
Oh,
a lot of people went to Donovan. Yeah.
Isn't it still called that?
I think it's called Donovan Catholic now.
Yes.
So it was, I had a great experience there, but every morning I would literally run through the neighborhood's backyard and get chased by dogs, and everybody would watch me as I came in the homeroom. I just had an issue with, being on time, I guess.
Do you have brothers and sisters? I don't recall
I do,
offhand.
Yeah, I have 2 brothers.
I'm sure I've met them both. I just forgot.
Yeah, definitely.
And are they at all like you?
A little bit, yeah. We all have our different qualities, right?
And are you don't have to go into detail on this, but like, did the Catholic upbringing? Are you still religious? We can edit it out if you don't want your mom to hear.
Yes, my mom like, I kind of went my different path at this point, but
spiritual.
So it had an impact on you in some way, like the values, the morals, or.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great qualities that I think make sense, and some that don't.
Yeah.
Got it. So
awesome. Cool.
Anything else we didn't touch upon that you'd like to leave?
No, I mean, I just thank you guys for having me, and what a great experience. And I always am so appreciative of your art and your talents. And
thank you, bro.
You really bring the vibe to Surf Taco. So if you're at Surf Taco, check out Jay's art.
Yep.
He's there at all our locations, and it's
thank you.
It really means a lot.
We get a lot of Surf Taco selfies here.
Yeah, I'm known as like the Surf Taco guy when people like locally run into my art, like, oh, you're the guy from Surf Taco.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, and I proudly affirm that.
Perfect.
So thanks.
Great.
So surftaco.com at Surf Taco NJ is your main Instagram, right?
Yeah. You can find me, and if you want to email me, it's Rob@SurfTaco.
Oh man,
direct email. Did you hear that?
Direct access. All right, everyone, spam Rob with some really crazy emails.
I have about 275,000 unopened emails. So
okay.
I don't get back to you. Don't take it personally.
All right, fair enough. Well, thanks, God. Rob. We appreciate it, bro.
Thank you.
Can we get one last epic?
It's epic.
Yes.
Thank you so much for listening, guys. We appreciate you. If you like what we're doing, could we ask you to go to iTunes and leave us a nice review and rating? It really helps us and helps other people to know that we're providing a good podcast for you. If you'd like to find us on social media, you can find us at Shifting Perceptions Podcast. You can find my artwork at jalders.com or me on social media at jalders. You can find my beautiful wife Chelsea on ommamasdoulas.com or on social media at ommamasdoulas. And if you'd like to join our newsletter or find episodes online with show notes, you can go to shiftingperceptionspodcast.com. Until next week, talk to you then. See you guys. Thanks so much.